Hello, my name's Daniel. I'm a human on Earth, so I just wanted to make this video reading the first chapter of my new book, Experience Theory. I basically wrote this book. It's basically just my theory of life, the best I've figured it out so far. Um, it's an alternative way to look at the universe and our place in it. Alternative, I don't know. Actually, it's something humans have thought for thousands of years. There's all kinds of theories out there, I guess, and this is just one of them. But I'm kind of obsessed with metaphysics and philosophy, and I think about this all the time. I just want to know, why are we humans on this planet floating out in space for some reason? Doesn't seem to make any sense. So, but I think I found a way finally to make sense of it, maybe. It's still not 100% that, like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I don't think there's gonna be any explanation of life that makes perfect sense. But that's just where I'm at now. There probably is, actually. To flip what I just said, I think maybe there actually is an answer to everything, and it's just hard to figure out. And if it is possible, I'm gonna figure it out. But where I'm at right now is just this one realization about the fact that we're conscious and we live as these humans, and we have 2 arms and 2 hands and faces, and we walk around on this planet, and there's other people with faces and 2 arms and stuff. Pretty weird, right? But we can explain that because if you break it down to simply what it is, we're just having experiences. And you have this body that you're in to, like, host the experience in this physical world where you can interact with other people that are also having experiences just like you. So how's that possible? I don't know, long story short, I mean, it's a whole book, but I'm writing about how I think that it all makes sense. If you think about the universe scientifically, we have this Big Bang theory. Everything originated as a singularity, and then it expanded into all the galaxies and stars and planets we see today, and we're just animals growing on one of the planets. And animals probably grow on all the planets eventually, or whichever ones are lucky enough to have the right conditions. So anyway, one way to explain that is that everything is a physical object. Like the singularity at the beginning of the Big Bang was a physical singularity where all the matter was condensed to one hot, dense, infinitely dense spot. But the weird thing about that theory is that, okay, this matter expands from the Big Bang, it creates all the galaxies, but why do people like us pop out on the planets? We just, we started as single-celled organisms in the oceans, and then we evolved into fish, eventually crawled out on the land, turned into squirrels and stuff, and eventually evolved into humans. Monkeys and different kinds of animals with arms and torsos, walking around making noises with our mouths. So why would that happen? If there was a physical Big Bang and it created the galaxies and the stars and the planets, maybe that could just happen on its own. The planets could just spin around the stars forever. Why does there need to be people like us who are, like, confused and we don't know why we're here? How weird that we popped out in this universe. It makes me think that the story of the Big Bang from the beginning till now, it maybe wasn't just physical matter, because it's kind of strange to think that conscious beings like us would pop out of unconscious matter. And so if you think about the alternative way of thinking of it, is basically, instead of physicalism, there's another branch of metaphysics or a different type of theory that's called idealism, where actually the whole thing was an experience the whole time. So somehow that singularity in the beginning was a single experience, and it expanded out into the galaxies. And actually the galaxies, we see them with our telescopes and we think, oh, those are clumps of matter. But they're actually clumps of experience, maybe. There's something what it's like to be a star on the inside, and it's just a vibration of heat or whatever it is. Maybe Who knows what it's like to be them? That's something I'm thinking about. But I feel like this explanation actually works better. And you start to notice, wait a minute, that explains this and this and this. For example, like that's why atoms follow the laws of physics. Sure seems weird that atoms just always follow the same rules as they're clinking together doing chemistry. Why do they always follow the same rules? You would think they would just fall apart or something. If it was just unconscious matter, what reason does it have to follow rules? We've had to invent these forces of nature to explain the behavior of atoms and molecules and stuff, but I think it could just be this much simpler explanation that they're conscious and they're living lives, and that's why as they evolved into more complex things, it's us. We are more highly evolved versions of those atoms and molecules, potentially. And this just isn't what I was taught in school, but it makes more sense, so I can't help thinking about that. So anyway, I think I just want to read the introduction to my book to introduce this while we look at planet Earth here. There's us floating out in space with no explanation. Let's see if we can figure it out. So my book just starts off like this. As we live our lives, we experience collections of visual, auditory, tactile, which is touch, gustatory, which is taste, olfactory, which is smell, vestibular, which is balance and spatial orientation, and proprioceptive sensations. Proprioceptive is the body position and movement sensations. So an experience is this collection of all these sensations. From our perspective as these human beings, these sensations make up 100% of our lives. Our science has revealed that everything in our universe, including our bodies and brains, is constructed from little entities we call atoms and subatomic particles, which behave according to natural laws of physics to create our world. We don't know what these particles are exactly, but a common assumption is that they're unconscious objects. So let's define some terms. Experience is a collection of sensations. Consciousness is the state of having experience. Conscious is that which has experience. And unconscious is just that which doesn't have experience. So like I was saying, the idea that everything in our world is built from little unconscious objects may seem fine on first inspection. However, the first-person experience we all have is an entirely different type of entity from physical material. Like I was saying, how are we conscious if we're made of unconscious matter? Is it really possible for unconscious objects to interact in such a way that generates conscious experience? Sure doesn't make sense to me. I guess I'll try not to sidestep, I'll just read it. As humanity makes progress in science and philosophy, we're getting closer to understanding how everything works, but we still don't have a satisfying answer to this. Philosophers have begun referring to this as the hard problem of consciousness. It's difficult for us to answer because we don't have a complete theory of everything. We have an excellent understanding of how the physical world operates, but we don't know why it operates the way it does, or how conscious people fit into the picture. In engineering, we make the assumption that objects in the universe objectively exist and change according to some laws of physics. However, the engineer's model of the universe doesn't offer an explanation for conscious experience, which is in truth the only thing anyone has ever actually experienced. Has anyone ever experienced anything other than their experience? As far as we know, no. One might consider that we can imagine things that aren't part of our current experience, but that's still an experience of imagining things. So everything that a human has ever experienced or imagined falls in the category of an experience. We don't really know of anything other than experience as humans from our perspective. So then we typically think of subatomic particles, atoms and molecules, as physical objects with 3 spatial coordinates, x, y, z, and 1 time coordinate, t, in a 4-dimensional space-time grid, and we use this to produce excellent working theories for engineering and technology. However, grids and coordinates are human-made tools for measuring and analysis, and they don't necessarily represent the true nature of what we observe. It's kind of technical, I guess. Let's see. We have learned to predict what subatomic particles and atoms will do, but we still don't know what they are. All we're seeing is how they behave. At some point, we're left scratching our heads asking, what would behave like this? We venture into metaphysics when we ask questions like that. Why do objects follow these laws of physics, and what's the true nature of everything? So there's different things, like many philosophers have suggested throughout history that our world could have a dual nature. Maybe there's both a consciousness realm and a physical world connected together. Some have imagined that our conscious experiences are actually illusions, and the engineer's physical worldview can explain everything by itself. I used to buy into that for many years, but now I'm not so sure. Another possibility is that consciousness is fundamental, and the entire universe, which seems physical to us, is something that emerged inside an experience. So when we analyze these different worldviews, we're studying metaphysics. And let's see. I'm almost done. There's the last 3 more paragraphs. A good example of a metaphysical question is, am I dreaming right now? This is what I think is so interesting, because this is why it's so hard to answer the question. I don't think you can really do a science experiment to determine the answer. Like, are atoms and molecules and matter conscious or not? Because there is no distinguishing factor to say yes or no that you could test with a science experiment. If they're conscious, then they're conscious. If they're not, then they're not. Either way, they're following what we see as the laws of physics. I kind of think the fact that they're following patterns means that they are conscious, but I don't know. It depends on how you think of it. It's really easy to skew it either way, honestly. It's very hard. And so this is what I'm saying, is that it's like the question, am I dreaming right now? A dream is like a simulation of real life, because the same kinds of experiences that happen in real life can happen in dreams. So none of the events in a dream are what make it a dream. It's because of the meta-reality that you're actually sleeping in the real world and imagining it all. So I don't think there's a science experiment that could tell you if you're dreaming. It can be very difficult to tell the difference while you're fully enveloped in an experience. Whatever would happen in the real world could be dreamed or simulated, so a dream or a simulation could be indistinguishable from real life. Because of this, it seems there's no science experiment to determine whether you're dreaming or not. Even if you tried an experiment, it's always possible to dream or simulate the outcome that supposedly proves you aren't dreaming. So it's impossible to be sure. And this is why answering questions about metaphysics requires more than scientific data alone. Even with all that, it will require proper reasoning and interpretation of the data to find the truth. So answering our metaphysical questions requires both science and philosophy. It's important to have an open mind to explore all the possibilities in order to have the best chance of finding the truth. Yeah. So some may wonder, why does it matter, or who cares about metaphysics? Many people have a deep driving curiosity to understand everything and want to know for fun. And that's me. But it's not only that. Metaphysics is a foundation for deriving our identity and ethics. Because think about it. I mean, if the universe has been a conscious experience the whole time, that changes who we are. That means that we're like this extension of a conscious universe, playing out lives on one little planet, as opposed to the whole universe is a dead universe with no life, and then we're the one little life popping out on one of the planets for some weird reason. The difference in metaphysics, it's a different story that explains our existence, so it changes how we would think of ourselves. So I think it's extremely important, actually, and it changes, our understanding of what life is informs us on who we are and what we should do with our lives. Whether we realize it or not, everything we do is affected by our view of the world and our position in it. Alright, so then at the end, getting ready for the first chapter of my book, I'm just saying, first we'll analyze different types of metaphysical theories and demonstrate why one type is more plausible than the rest. Then we'll explore the details of it and see how it sheds light on some of the deepest mysteries that human beings have always wondered about, such as the origin of the universe, the nature of time, the nature of subatomic particles, how life evolved on Earth, and whether human beings have free will or not. Because all of those interesting questions depend on what the universe really is, and is it conscious, or is it just matter floating in space for some reason? Anyway, then I go on, and I got 11 chapters in the book. I'm almost done with it. And I'll just be explaining my view and my theory of what makes the most sense, I think. And yeah, it's just about the most interesting thing I can think of, because I'm a human on this planet and I don't know why, so what else should I think about? Alright, that's all for now. Thanks for listening to my video of me talking about how weird life is. Alright, bye for now.